and then we can. Okay, listen. I like having guests in. Normally, you guys like having guests in as well. This semester, I think we'll probably have 3, maybe 4 maximum. I'll try and put it into these slots. Sometimes I'm asked to open it up to everyone. I thought it'd be nice, it's a difference as well, to have Tobias along, because A, he's done the same module as you. B, what he started up, or the startup we will talk about in its 3rd year? 3rd year of operations, so you can be an old start, still starting, but I think he's progressed a lot, is that it's here on campus at the moment. And the third thing is it belongs to the category ecology of entrepreneurship. So there's a lot of these organizations that are now sprung up, let's say in the last 10, maybe 15, 20 years, that come to support, from accelerators to incubators to network organizations that are actually consulting, student-led. I think I mentioned to you the biggest student-led organization related to entrepreneurship in the UK, something called NACU. And if I can, it's always bad timing with NACU, because this time of the year they have their massive pitch competition and they have their annual conference or something. If I can, I'll have the CEO of they're young, maybe 3 or 4 years older than you at the most, come and speak to you about NACU. Started 10 years ago and now has influence on government policy making. I don't know, North London University or West, I don't remember where they started, just 2 or 3 ladies, I think, initially. So this is different for us in terms of guest speaking. Usually we have the business itself, but it's worth, if you're thinking careers or how do I get involved in this, thinking about these sorts of enterprises that are speaking. Tobias will speak about Junior Enterprise Regents, which is interesting for me to see, Tobias, because when I first started, the first week I said, why are you on this course? What do you hope to gain from it? I want to learn about SME, startups, entrepreneurship, what is it? And he clearly said, no, do you want to go and work in those spaces? And he said very clearly, no, I'm not interested, but I want to consult, I'm interested in consultancy. I think you said consultancy, but not that interested in never going into trying to start or work in starting up businesses. I'll let him tell you a little bit about why he's partly changed his mind, because this is a nice mix actually, what you do. Yeah? Okay, so I won't steal any more of your thunder, but I'll leave you to Tobias Spengler. Okay? He's the MD for JER.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks I get the opportunity to represent JER here in this environment. Yes, I started, I think, beginning of this year here at Regents University as exchange student, and I was sitting in the same place like you are sitting at the moment, and how Ed said I was not really interested in startup or something like this. The cost changed a bit my opinion. But what is, okay, not touch. What is JER at the moment? So we are a non-profit organization. We are on campus, which means we are an activity, a university activity on an official part. But at the end of this semester or beginning of the next semester, we will create our own legal form where we have much more opportunities and chances to create much more value than at the moment. But what does it mean to be a union enterprise? We are led by students, only by students, and we are here to close the gap between the theoretical part, university, and your careers later. So it means we are at the moment 19 members in JER. All of the members are separated in different departments and have the opportunity to work on projects with internal clients, for example, with the entrepreneurs from the Hive, but with external clients as well. For example, we have a client from Texas where we're creating at the moment education video for B2C market. It was created in 2017 by Lulu. She was on this course as well, I think. She's graduated and left the university. She settles the foundation, the strong foundation for JER. All the papers, the rules, the structure is coming from her, and we are strong in connection with her furthermore. The Hive is the Hive. Are you familiar with the Hive or the concept of the Hive? So then it helps a bit because the Hive is supporting us in different sections. So one thing is the monetary part. So the the Hive is supporting us with a kind of budget for the first 3 years. It's ending 1 year, so that could be interesting. And on the other side, it's for resources as well. Resources which mean advice, technology, and the rooms as well, because the Hive is something like our working space. Our key skills at the moment are project management, event management, business development, and marketing. You will see the structure in JER is structured like this as well. And I prefer to have my project managers directly from this department. So when we have, for example, a project with a strong links to a marketing aspect, then I prefer to have my manager for the marketing department to overtake responsibility for this project itself. There's one thing, so at university, the skills for project is really limited. For this reason, I create, for example, workshops in project management to bring new skills and better understanding of project management to my managers and to the member of JER as well. Event management, for example, we are starting now panel discussions about the consulting industry in February here at Regents University. We are working strongly together with the student union, and there gets the members and my marketing manager the opportunity to work strong together with the student union and with Regents, and to create a bit more value and increase their skill set as well. The business development department is mostly responsible to find new projects. At the moment, we are running, I think, 5 projects at the same time, a good mix between paid service and service for free for our entrepreneurs, for example, or for the Hive itself. We are part of the JER Europe. JER Europe was created in, I think, 1995 in Brussels. It's an umbrella organization, which means you have different union enterprises in Italy, in France, in Germany, and they're working all together in these union enterprises Europe. There are more than 28,000 students at the moment. I think it increased more than 30,000 at the moment, with more than 365 union enterprises split on the whole European continent, and with more than 250 universities. JER Europe is part of JER Global as well, which means we have an exchange with union enterprises from America, South America, and a bit of African as well. And they created a great platform to exchange ideas, skills, and information about different markets and the possibilities to develop. We have 4 conferences per year in Europe. For example, this Friday I fly to Frankfurt. We have 1 conference in Mainz, it's near to Frankfurt, and we have there more than 150 union consultants from Europe alone. I think it's more than 8 nations where we covered it. JER Europe is at the same time, you can see it's supporting the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, the EU itself, and is a part of the board from UNESCO Youth Committee, which you can see that the interest from the EU and from their economy is really strong to have the mindset of young professionals, especially from union enterprises, in their strategies, and they're looking really forward to have the exchange with the young minds. Just a small overview from our last activities. This is the venture crawl. It starts once per year here in London. I think it's in February. It's open for everybody. So when you're interested to have a better overview of the startup scene in London, you can join. I think it's a student hub offers the registration. I think it was for free, and it was 1 day. I think 10 universities, something like this, and we had a tour through London with 5 companies. I was, for example, in the headquarters from Amazon, and one really nice startup which created a virtual reality for different industries. And at the end, it's the target should be to create their own startup idea and to pitch it in front of everybody. I think, how many people were there? I think 200, something like this. It's pretty interesting which kind of ideas the different teams create in one day, just to see different places and to see where are the gaps at the moment and which kind of business idea could fulfill these gaps. Then you have on this corner, I think it's a spring conference. It was in Brussels from JER Europe, and above that will be the next conference in Mainz. I think it's a picture from 1 year ago. The places from the conference changed regular. So we have one fixed place, that's Brussels, because it's the core of JER Europe, but every other place changed from quarter to quarter. I was in the last conference in Coimbra, it's in Portugal. It was just amazing. I think it was more than 250 students from around Europe, and the different point of views, the different kind of mindset. It was really great to see something like this. To understand the structure of JER, how I said, we have at the moment 4 departments which are shared in business development, marketing, human resource, and operations. We are 19 members at the moment, mostly in BD and marketing, because the interest is really strong there. And we created operations with the beginning of this term as well, because it's very important to have a department to support the MD at the end and to control the daily business. When we have projects, I'm a huge fan of interdisciplinary projects. When we have a project for marketing, there's always a reason to put someone from BD or from operation in the project as well, because the different point of views and the different ideas is just an increasing of the value of the project itself. Then just a small overview of my managers that maybe you see them on campus as well. For example, that's Carol. She's head of HR. She's from Mongolia, so we are really multicultural at the moment. Then we have Alice Baxman. She is from Sweden and my head of marketing. Then we have Vivian. She is from Switzerland and my head of business development. And last but not least, we have Parker. He is from US, and with the beginning of this term, my head of operations. I settled some standards in JER, which are very important for myself. To see that everybody is on the same level. There's no discrimination, but there's no benefits at the same time. And for me, it's important to say, I don't care about the social background or the study subject or the gender and so on. For me, it's much more important that the people have the right soft skills. It's much more important than the hard skills. And to bring the willingness and the motivation to bring the best possible benefits to JER. And I think that was. For yourself, should you be interested in something like this in JER itself, or just to get a better overview of this, feel free to contact me or one of my managers or the regular channels. We're looking forward to discuss some topics or to exchange ideas or maybe to take some applications as well. Thank you.
So, Tobias is used to me, so don't feel bad for him when I fire off horrible questions or thoughts or things. One of the things we've been trying to practice in the last 4 or 5 weeks is with the startups you've been targeting, is to see the mess rather than the structure, the cleanliness, the beautiful pictures, etc., etc. And I'm sure there are challenges that you're facing. There never aren't any. that could do with some help. Let's not do that first. Maybe what it would be useful to share is the messy side of what it's been like for you in the last, since you started 9 months now? Yeah, I don't remember when you exactly joined.
February.
Okay, so even less. And just so people have access to the day-to-day, because sometimes, for me especially, what worries me is, I think I've said it to you, the Beatles look amazing. Well, Beatles might be some weird generation of mine, but let's say a pop group today look amazing when you see them up front, and the way the media will spin the narrative for who they are, their life story, it's all constructed, and it looks good until something goes wrong, and then all the shit comes to the fore. And that also helps. That helps as well. What's important in the startup world is not to romanticize it too much, without taking into account the messy stuff. So I think it would be really useful if you have anything to share that doesn't, of course, breach commercial confidences and other things that have been tough, that are difficult, because a lot of times, should I get a job? Should I work with a family, or should I start something on my own? And when? And you've decided to kick off with something even before you graduate, which, by the way, I encourage anywhere I go. Because it will help you decide whether you carry on later or not, or whether you try it again when you're 40s, 50s, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay? Is that fair?
Well, for me, it was it's a whole journey. So I started without interest to create something like this, and I didn't create it. I was the managing director at the moment. But the value which JR gave to me in just a small period is amazing. You're working with different kind of people together, different mindsets, and you don't understand every single mindset, and sometimes you have really problems on the social aspect. It's cost a lot of time, really a lot of time, and you don't get any monetary benefits from it, just your own experience at the end. But for me, it's changed maybe my point of view for the future a bit more. I worked 10 years in a huge company. Now I'm a student. My idea was to come back to the huge company again. Maybe it's something in the middle way for my future. To create something by yourself, which is really interesting, because when you're working for your own enterprise, for your own startup, for your own idea, the benefits at the end are much more greater. When you talk with the entrepreneurs from the Hive, for example, Louisa Hassel is a great example for this. She's a student at the moment as well. She created her business a half year ago. She used every single minute to study or to create more value for her business. But she's really happy. And I think at the end is the most important thing. Do what you feel is the right thing and be happy what you're doing.
Most difficult moments is what I'm pushing you for, that you can share in JER so far. Whether it's from dealing with people, whether you have to let go of people, whether you have to find people, know what's coming for, all these kinds,
Well, in the summer, I set 2 people free because of the
What? I set 2 people free?
Yeah.
This is a nice diplomatic way of saying I got rid of 2 people.
Well, there was an agreement to say, okay, for both sides, it's better. Because the mindset didn't match at the end.
You sound like my brother, Tobias. It was better for them in the long run, yes.
But yeah, I think it's very important, and it's interesting to act with people in this kind of, because when many students are leaving this university, they are thinking, oh, damn, now I'm the manager, I'm going outside, and the people are working for me and not working for the people. And there's one duty and to fire people as well, which is not so easy in some cases, but it's an experience, and it's very important, I think. The other thing is to find new managers for the future, because I will leave Regions next year in May, so it's not allowed for me to be further part of JER. And you have to bring new skills, new personalities to this position later to continue this journey of JER.
It's something that I've been emphasizing here. The 2 things, if we were to look from an investor's point of view, how investable is JER? And the questions will always be, what is your market? What is the team? So you reflected a little bit about getting
that team mix right, to try and sustain it into the future, given that you have limited time on it. I have written, actually, yeah, go, let you guys ask some questions.
But if you're saying how investable is GER, first, why does it need to have monetary benefit if it's a non-profit organization? So, no, it's a question for you.
But I'm not running it. I can tell you principles of why and why, but the question wasn't aimed at monetary when I asked investable.
Okay.
What other investments can you make?
Yeah.
Time and people, those are investments, right? And he, Tobias just said, the toughest thing is getting right, and then finding people. And what you're asking them to do, you're asking them to invest their servitude, their service into running something for the benefit of others in the case of a not-for-profit. Yeah. So that's the way to look at the lens of investment, if you like.
So how do you target new clients?
Basically, at the moment, through connections. So when you have one project which is running really good and it's coming to the end, and you try to get a new project from the same client, but at the same time, this client has another kind of network. So there is an opportunity that he recommend yourself to other client, possible client. And
you do your service for free to them?
No. So it depends. When we are working for the Hive, for example, or for the entrepreneurs, it's pro bono. It's a kind of an agreement that we are supporting the Hive and the members, and we're getting the resources. But when you're working with external clients, it's a paid service because we have some expenses as well. For example, conferences, and we have to pay back some debt as well. So it's very important to have a regular income. Yeah.
So just, the Hive is in the interest of regents, students, and alumni, right?
Yes.
Alumni to some extent can also come and take some space there and start their, or run their startup businesses from there to some extent. So I think the pro bono is, I think it's an agreement, so you'll know the detail of it, to help those out until such point where they can be commercial clients as well, I would imagine, into the future. Yeah.
Are you allowed to give any information about external companies you have advised?
The thing is, we are now established since 2 years. At the beginning, it's the time-consuming part. You're really involved just in your own stuff to bring the structure in it. We have clients at the moment, more in the consulting industry, small businesses until medium businesses. But at the moment, it's a running project, so I don't want to talk too much about details.
I think there are interesting, we don't have to give names, etc. But I found there was an interesting one that was something to do with Afghanistan. I don't remember. This maybe before your time. Maybe, yeah, maybe 18 months ago. It wasn't Luli's team, it was another team. Yeah. I don't remember what the business was, but it was to find markets in Afghanistan. And I think if you remember, I talked about one that really frontier markets are not all that risky when it comes to thinking about doing very simple. I'm trying to think what it was. But there are interesting projects that you work on. I mean,
well, we are working now, for example, with one alumnus together for business development for businesses from Italy, which I want to expand to London. Which is pretty interesting. So we created a kind of think tank because, and that's a quote, the client said he is too old to catch the new mindset of the next generation, and for this he want to use the youngest.
How old is he?
Mid of his 30s. So it's not too old, but yeah. He said from himself he didn't match or he didn't get what is really important for the newest generation, and so he said, okay, it's a nice working agreement because, to be honest, union enterprise are much more cheaper than other kind of professional services, and it's a win-win situation for both, especially when it's our alumnus or friend region.
It's an interesting question as well in terms of age. It's been coming down, it's true, but what is the average age in the US, for example, of someone who starts a business? Well, let's say what decade, what generation? Late 40s to mid 50s. So, there are these concepts out there. And I think what would be really interesting is how maybe not you, but the next stage, start to market to an older generation the realization that actually some of the challenge, because what you have to do from looking for clients is those people have challenges that they don't necessarily have time to do themselves because they're sort of not prioritized, but would be willing to, in some instances, pay for someone to take it and do it while they're busy with other things. I don't know if that's the pain. I would say identify the pain, because that's the people will pay you to resolve the pain more than they will their need or want, etc. That's quite a common thing out there in the world of starting a business. And I suspect, I don't know, you tell us what you think you're dealing with the clients now that you've had a few experiences with them. What is it that they really want help with?
From my point of view, it's really the understanding what's important for the young 20s and the market from maybe from the young 20s until the mid or 30s, because the students are much more involved in social media, for example. When I see my parents with social media, forget it. It's just the wrong generation, but it's the generation who has the money, want to make business with social media as well. And I think this is one of the most important parts this time. Creating videos, for example. I was surprised how many people are coming to us and saying, hey, you can create education videos or videos for internal training and so on. And this is one of the reasons why we expand, for example, JER for the future. We're working together with the film media department here from the university. And the idea is to create a new department which is really specialized just on creating videos. Just to have the skills in-house and not to ask again and again external providers.
This notion of video content, sort of user generation video content, been around for a while. I'm trying to think, did he come and speak to your, I think he didn't speak to your, he spoke to the cohort before yours. There's a German student who started up, he was a bodybuilder. Does anyone know who I'm talking? I'm trying to remember his name. And what it's quite clever. The idea was to curate specific video content. Okay, that means use other people's video content, not just his, with their permission. So typically personal trainers, etc., etc. So I don't know if this is a model you guys need to think about.
Migo is his nickname.
Huh?
Migo is his nickname. Right?
I don't know his nickname.
Migo.
No, that doesn't ring a bell. I'll get it. I'll share it with you on the Facebook. And what was really interesting, you say, how do I pay? At some point after having 18 months, and I think he got funded as well, just maybe 50 grand to start off with. He was running out of it. He'd done a lot. How do I get paid? What will people pay for? Well, people will pay for what others have voted up as being good. So that's going to become the subscription part, and the rest is going to be the free education part. Now, for me, that is a very interesting way of crowd-sourcing your pricing. I'd be interested to see what educators do in terms of that, because many educators try to avoid the commercial question. They assume it, and then they almost insist on they push the price out there to the consumer. So think about the models of how video content is being used and how it's sort of forming for this generation that you're talking about. I think, which, frequently there's a group, I don't want to call them millennials, a generation which partly you make up, partly my nephew's 25, 26 makes up, 26, 25 make up, and then even his brothers make up, which is to say, you'll suffer from attention deficit disorder. It's not true. You have short concentration spans, mainly, but that may be because you're processing things much faster than our lot. So they're kind of judgments and value attributions that are being made to a whole group. And so I think this is what's fascinating with the challenges you're talking about. Is there are old, or let's say interested parties, not always old, who want to understand critically what this new space is, because it is not all the stereotypes we've been given people for the last 10 years. And so all the marketing and the digital creation and content fragmentation that's gone on has failed, because people have kind of put people in blankets and realized that now we need to think about a customization where folks using the new technologies tell us. So I like this model of the crowd telling you as you pump out content, for example, what you will get paid for and what you won't. And the KSI Logan fight was a really interesting one. The boxing, you know what I'm talking about? KSI was huge because it comes from. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay. This weekend, do you know what I'm talking about? This weekend there was this big KSI. Who knows? Someone said, yeah, I heard about it. Yeah. Do you want better in your language than mine?
It's just two YouTubers, so basically gamers, and they basically did a fight. They did one last year, and they did one again this year, and there was like, I don't know, I think 500,000 people watching, or something like that, and they just did a boxing fight.
They sold their rights to a subscription-based platform that is sort of disrupting the industry for the sports. Or
And what was really interesting for the second fight, so this is a YouTuber's thing that happened in the first fight. It generated lots for them. What was really interesting in the second fight is that you have Sky TV, which is traditional broadcaster, old folks, if you like, or a bunch of people who thought they understood digital in the last decade. And the promoter himself is from the boxing business, the son of another promoter from the boxing business, who's bought into it, who's had to support it because they recognize that they feel threatened. So you've got these massive broadcast and agency businesses that have been around for about 70, 80, 100 years, and suddenly they're under threat from a new form. But the question is, how do we commercialize that? And what you have to do is see what is it that people have been viewing, what is it that people want from these two guys, and generate it from there's so much to generate from the crowd, rather than make the assumption in yesterday's data.
This guy was charging £10 per like subscription team fight.
Per view. Yeah. And it was more than 500,000.
I was so surprised. I was just like, I can't believe this is happening in our day and age, but it is. People want to see two gamers fighting. It's crazy.
Two gamers boxing.
Also, they were not boxing in real life.
No, they were
boxing in real life. Okay, I thought they were. But they're two gamers. Like, I don't get it. The kids.
They started as gamers. I don't know how. To be honest, my nephews know better how they came to challenge each other for a boxing bout. I think they one of them suggested it, and their followers said, "Yeah, man, do it."
Yeah.
That's interesting in itself. Okay, but what's really interesting is that the method is challenging established practice.
I mean, YouTube is like TV for the internet, right? It's like Sky is nothing compared to YouTube. This is just proof of it. Sky is going into YouTube because they have to. They don't have a choice.
Who on YouTube?
Google.
Yeah.
Just TV for billions.
And so it's another model which is really gaining traction. There's still, there are responses that Sky and others have. They have resources to respond. We don't know what the responses are. For sure, we know it works because the Netflixes, the Amazon Primes, now the Apple TV are jumping onto that, going further down that model, which is let the crowd decide, let the participants decide, not the experts, right? Not the guy who knows everything about boxing, has all the best boxers in his stable, can decide who's going to box who, has to suddenly jump on a couple of kids who, are now called professional boxers, but just a punch up in a brewery, really. And he has to attend to them. I find, and for education, this is also part of it.
I mean, Sky, you can also get cheaper Netflix now through Sky. If you have Sky Q, instead of paying £10 a month for Netflix.
Yeah, that's right.
£5 a
Yeah,
month.
I was talking
Yeah,
about
Sky
that.
Q.
No, my brother does.
Sky told me, like, you want Netflix for cheaper? I was like, sure. And then they were like, this is what we do now. I was like, okay, cool.
Okay, so interesting. Interesting that you're in need. I think, I don't know if he started, there was another alumni from about 5 years ago. He realized that, brands, you need to recognize this, that you are invaluable, which in English means the value is infinite. The brands really don't know how to get to small tribes, which is the future of sales, never mind marketing, etc. And they already, a lot of them already did this. Starbucks are on campus, and the banks have already hit you before you even arrive in some cases. The bookshop is dead keen on controlling what you purchase rather than Amazon. So there are huge battles for not your generation, for a group of people that are growing up in a new age. But sports, you name any type of brand, they need to be the door to you as individuals. And organizations like this, like JER, are very well placed to take advantage of that. We'll see how you go. I mean, you learn, and next year someone will come up and tell us where their story's taken us. Any other questions you'd like for Tobias? You know where to find it if need be. Well, yeah, well, I've got them on there.
Yeah. So we are working really independently, and there are I think every single day. But the team is working remotely sometimes for the project. So we have one general meeting per week, and then we are in the hive itself. Otherwise, it's a bit more flexible. But at the end, the hive is our headquarters. So that's it.
Two things that I listened out for that I really liked is we're going independent increasingly because the money runs out. And the cool question is, how do you sell? I think I told you, I prefer investing by selling as opposed to other people's money in the investment model, etc., etc. So what are you selling? How are you selling? Who are you selling to? And that's the next. You will help with that. You'll primarily be getting them into a situation where they can even think like so independently. And I'm going to be curious as to how they survive beyond. What's it? 3 years now? It'll be when you start to go through your without funding support, I guess.
Yeah.
How long did you have funding support for? 3 years or 2?
For 3 years, we're now in this third year, and
Yeah.
I think next year in November it's running out.
Good luck.
Then we have to stand alone.
All right, good. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We'll go for a dinner or coffee sometime as a thanks for that. Questions? We're all good. Next week, Miriam said she'll come up and speak to folks about. I've asked her to also do the dirty laundry in public sort of thing as much as she can. Not to put you off, but to make you think about it if you're thinking to your own business, even with your new family. All right. Thanks, folks. Thanks for sharing. I'll see you tomorrow. Some of you tomorrow. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's thanks. How was it? That was interesting.